Hello and welcome to Lazy Cinema, and on this episode, when a high school guidance counselor is amongst famous with his students, to the point where he is put on trial for possibly raping a student, it turns out there was more to him than meets the eyes, with a case that will have more twists and turns than you can imagine. And John McNaughton, Wild Things. Hello and welcome to another episode of Lazy Cinema. I'm your host, Lazy Universe, and today we're talking about Kevin Bacon, Matt Damon, Neve Campbell, and Denise Richards in Wild Things. Now, this film did come out in 1998, and my father picked it up from a thrift store where we were basically living slash staying in the Saratoga area, and then suddenly we he told me that I needed to watch the film at the time, and sadly I ignored it up until today because A, I needed stuff to review, and also B, I've never seen this movie before, even though he told me that it is a great movie, and he's right. This is a film that is directed by John McNaughton with a story by Stephen Peters, who actually both gave us a pretty good movie. Now the story is about a teacher named Sam Lombardo, played by Matt Damon, who undergoes through a court case after he believes to have raped one of his students, Kelly Van Ryan, played by Neve Campbell, but it turned to be much more than that, especially when the case is brought on by Detective Ray Devo, or Devati, played by Matt, played by Kevin Bacon, and who actually has another person involved in this under the name of Kelly, played by Denise Richards. And there are some other people in this, including both Robert Wagner and Bill Murray. And I gotta say, this movie has a lot of twists and turns, but this what makes it a good court drama. Especially in a lot of places where you wouldn't expect this movie to go, but when it takes that turn, it suddenly gets even better. Including with some post-credit scenes that actually tie everything in together, which actually, in my opinion, made it better instead of worse because it kept you on your toes about what was going on, including with someone on the backboard of the chessboard, just waiting to be used with one of the characters, but I won't spoil who. I know that this movie came out in 1998. Many people had probably saw it by this point, but I'm just saying for now, in case if you didn't see it and you want to see it, I'm going to try not to spoil it as much as I can. So it is true that this starts out as a court drama for about the first hour, and then later goes into much more different territories with a master plan created by four individuals, and really took me off my feet when that happened because they did it so well that I never even saw it coming. And especially for both Matt Damon and Kevin Bacon, whose careers were starting by this point, this was a great way, especially to march more of their career forward. Kevin Bacon was actually working on Footloose, where he made his debut premiere, and also Tremors, which is one of my favorite movies, where he even got that much better. And especially for Matt Damon, whose career was launched into not only Saving Private Ryan, where it feels like that probably was he's best known for, but also the Bourne Identity, trilogy worded today. And especially both of these people are just massive, great performers, especially for the team of Neve Campbell and Denise Richards. Both of these women do a fantastic job of misleading you into directions that you didn't even know that these two women could go, and that honestly is the best part because when you first watch the movie, there were these two, kind of like innocent but used individual, but later on turned out to be a lot more sinister than you would believe them to be. And of course, the director John McNaughton did use these women not only for for sex appeal on camera, which there are a lot of shots where he does use them for sex appeal, of course. But and this movie is rated R for good reasons. There's a lot of nudity and sex going on in this movie, of course, too. But outside of that, I really did believe that these were two women who knew what they were doing, and that what made them much more sinister in the film, especially Denise Richards as Kelly, really sold the performance as a woman who was, a stoner or could be played as stupid, but turns out that she knew a lot more than she was, leaning upon. And I think that for the most part, this was a great way of showing a director cast kind of relationship, because whatever the director asked for these performers in this movie, they really kind of seem to put through, and especially for both the team of Matt Damon and Kevin Bacon really shines in this, and especially when they're on screen together, even if they're calling each other names, it's still like one of the greatest performances that I've ever seen. And yes, of course, there are, the scenes with Denise Richards and Nev Campbell as well, and I think that there was a one scene where Kevin Bacon filmed, which was them doing a lesbian love scene. I'm not going to beat around the bush with that, but it doesn't go anywhere. But I think that the director, John McNaughton, just wanted to put that in there just because you have the two sexy actresses working together. What are you going to do? But in all honesty, even if these two work together again on like a drama sort of like this, I would love it because these two actually do work very well together. And even if they ever took the direction of doing maybe something like something like maybe a drama thing for them, like maybe that they're lesbians that in a sense, but should not be together, or maybe that they're sisters and something. They really have a good chemistry, working with each other, and I would like to see a lot more, come and see them, especially even till now. I know that they're probably not, the same age that they were back then, but even still today, they could probably pull off a massive grand scale performance, especially even since still with Matt Dillon and Kevin Bacon, even still today, still working in the TV businesses and whatnot, with Matt Dillon's last greatest performance being The Martian, and Kevin Bacon is now currently working on a new series that is coming out. I forget what I just saw a commercial yesterday with him on it. I completely forget. So, there's a lot of goodness coming from this. And Bill Murray, who is last seen in Ghostbusters Afterlife, which I will hopefully be reviewing next month. Fingers crossed for me, guys. Fingers crossed. Either February or March. Fingers crossed. And this Bill Murray, now there's a lot of Bill Murray performances that don't feel the same because of how great this guy is as an actor. But really for Bill Murray, this felt a lot like Ghostbusters Bill Murray. It felt a lot like Peter Venkman. The way that he acts, the jokes that he makes. It does feel a lot like he's drawing his energy from Peter Venkman from Ghostbusters, and that's not a bad thing. And considering that, when this film came out in '98, not too long prior, he did Ghostbusters 2. So, this guy was sitting on quite a bit of fame by this point, and I really did love Murray's performance to the point where I just guessed that he was a lawyer in this, and then when he did show up, I'm like, oh god. Also, another thing I noticed that this movie loves to do is show crocodiles hunting, or gators, essentially. And I think that this is a part where it's mostly like the team that is working together is like a bunch of crocodiles, reliant on each other, yes, but eventually has the tendency to turn on each other, and I think that's what's great about this. But the movie calling itself Wild Things, I don't know, because the title's a little bit misleading because there's nothing really wild about this. I mean, if this was about a basically court case where let's just say this, for example, just for like a court case, having Matt Damon, going around and misleading his student to sleep with him, and then it's up to Kevin Bacon to solve the case. That would have been great to have the movie be called Wild Things in a sense, because you have Matt Damon basically making his student become wild, but that's not what happens at all. I just think that the title is a slight little misleading in a sense, but I don't let that sort of like drown it down. And Matt Damon, dear God, um, really sells a performance about a guy that misuses and misleads women, and especially the way that he talked really goes for that manipulative type, especially when he talked to Kevin Bacon's partner in his little motel hotel room, and she almost is getting lead in to basically with him almost in a sense sleeping with her, and that's really kind of like good part on Matt Damon for playing this manipulative man. And even so, the last time I've seen something like that was in Spring Break with James Franco, where he played a similar sort of scene as well, which is great, by the way. But it also feels like Damon is really trying to do like who's a great manipulator, the way that he speaks, I guess, like Charles Manson in a sense. Like, he really tries to dig deep into what he can do as a performer and really excels in it, especially for Kevin Bacon, which the last time I've seen him play a detective was in R.I.P.D. But here, he does even more so of a great job, especially playing the detective who gets even put on trial because he didn't listen to his commanding officers, which was great by his standards. All in all, Wild Things is a surprisingly really great movie, and especially with the cover, is misleading. Because what I thought with the cover was that, oh, maybe it's Kevin Bacon and Matt Dillon getting into a kind of like situation and being used by Nev Campbell and Denise Richards. That is not what happens at all. So the cover is also a little bit misleading, but honestly, it is great. And on the back here by Dennis Willis, it says the hottest and most lurid pop boiler since Basic Instinct. I never seen Basic Instinct, so I believe that to be correct. That it is one of the greatest court dramas I've ever seen, and I have not seen many. But if I had to compare this to one of my favorite films, Philadelphia, with Tom Hanks and Denzel Washington, this does not measure up to it in the sense of a court drama, but in the sense of a mystery film, it excels greatly in it, and I love it, including talking about one thing that nobody knew about, I think her name was Sarah in this film, or it was Kelly. I get them mixed. And the thing is that she's a lot smarter than people really brought her out to be. Is that a great thing? Well, you'd have to see it to believe it. And if I were you guys, I would check out Wild Things and see what happens. If you guys could, please yourself be your own Wild Thing by subscribing and liking this video. And also, please, similar to a crocodile, hunt me down by both subscribing to this channel to see more videos that I've done, or hunt me down at Twitter with a link in the description down below, and be sure to check out some more of the cinema videos that I have done. So thank you guys so much for watching. In case you haven't seen Wild Things, you owe it to yourself to watch a great movie with a great acting, a great director, and a great script to go on with it. And this is one of the best, both Matt Dillon and Kevin Bacon films I've seen in quite a long time. The only thing that drags it down for me was just a little bit of misdirection from the team, making me think that like maybe this was going to be something different. But the DVD itself, the case, then the movie itself is a bunch of misdirection to lead you into something that is much more greater that needs to be seen. So until next time, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time on the next Lazy Cinema. Until next time.